what was some of the initial thoughts that you had when you heard that you were in the induction class for 2026?
I was a little bit surprised because I have a couple of other colleagues from my journalism days who also went to school in Pasadena. I really kind of felt they were more deserving. But hopefully they can hear their name called someday, get the call that they're in the Hall of Fame. And the second thing that came to mind were all the memories from back then. Memories that extend back to when I was in high school. I was on the journalism staff in high school, then junior college, and then went to UT and graduated from UT. And it just brought back not so much the memories of covering this event or being involved in this or that. It had more to do with what happened in the early days. How did I get here? How did I get here? Sometimes I have to kind of pinch myself and remind myself there were some lucky breaks along the way, and I appreciate what happened.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, how did we get here? So can you tell us a little bit about some of the earliest days getting into journalism and where it all started for you?
It really all started, first of all, I was a paper boy. I threw the Chronicle when I was a kid. I was one of those weird kids that actually read the paper while I was rolling the paper. In fact, some days I was late getting the paper out because I was too busy reading it. But then I got to high school, South Houston High School, and I got into journalism because there was a little girl who I was madly in love with. She was in journalism, and I wanted to get the same class she was in. So I got on the newspaper staff there, the Torch, and was sports editor of the Torch. They asked me, what are you most interested in? I said, well, sports. And so, all right, you be sports editor. So that's fine. And then came a big break, and San Jacinto College sent some students out to talk to us, to really a recruiting trip. And I ended up going to San Jacinto College and was on the staff there. And that was really one of the best decisions I ever made, was going to San Jacinto, because they had a first-rate newspaper staff with Kathleen Smith and John Bolin and Sally Sanford, the big three. And then, lo and behold, I went on to the University of Texas, and I walked into the newspaper office and said, I'd like to be on the staff. And they said, you're from San Jacinto College? I said, yes. I said, we've had great luck with students from San Jacinto College. And I immediately got a spot. And things began to accelerate from that point. I got out of college, got a job. One job led to another. And the next thing I know, I'm not rolling the Chronicle and throwing it to my customers. I'm working at the Chronicle, part of their sports staff. And I did that for the better part of the 1980s.
And if you could go back to those days, your earlier days, at what point did it become real to you? I think I can do a career of this. Was there a defining moment for you that?
Well, there was a San Jacinto College used to have an event called Journalism Day, and they would invite all the journalism students, I think, from the entire area out for a big kind of a convention, workshops and things like that. It ended with this big luncheon of hundreds of kids seated there in the main student center, and they're giving away awards, and I hadn't even entered anything. Somebody entered it for me, and I won an award, an honorable mention. It's still on my wall in my office. I won an honorable. I said, I might be pretty good at this. And so it kind of gave me the incentive, just that little old honorable mention award kind of gave me the incentive to keep doing this, keep going, see how far you can go.
Yeah, and it's great to see that sometimes those little details, those little moments can have a big impact in your
there's
career.
no doubt about it.
So tell us a little bit further into your career. So I know you go from UT, and then you started working at some bigger newspaper companies. Tell us a little bit about that. I know I have here listed Houston Chronicle, Dallas Morning. You were in Texas and Oklahoma. So tell us a little bit about that era.
Well, the first job out of college, and again, it kind of was the reputation of where I was coming from that got me the job. But first job was at the Savannah Morning News. They had simply called the University of Texas Placement Office. They had hired a guy off the Daily Texan the year before, and they said, send us another one. Yeah. And so the placement office got in touch with me, and the next thing I know, I'm on I-10 headed for Savannah, Georgia.
Wow.
I was there about a year and then landed a job in Corpus Christi, which I was there 4 years, and that was a great move. That was a great learning experience there. And then I went on to the Daily Oklahoman, kind of a big step up, Daily Oklahoman, covering the Oklahoma Sooners. That was my beat. Wanted to get back home, got a job at the Chronicle, was there 9 years or so, And then I jumped to the Houston Post.
Yeah.
Kind of a unusual deal, but reporters back then really didn't jump from one paper to another. But I declared my free agency and I jumped to the Post. Then I taught a year. I taught at St. Thomas High School for a year because the Post was in trouble, and I have never been one to want to go down with a sinking ship. So I taught for a year, and then I got a job. The Dallas Morning News contacted me. The Big 12 was about to start, and they wanted a reporter to live in Houston and cover the Big 12. So I did that for about 8 years, and then the last stop there was San Antonio. I wanted an editor's job, and so I hooked up with them and became deputy sports editor in San Antonio.
I'm sure you covered a lot of news in that time. What drove you to keep working and just to keep exploring and find different stories, and what was that driving factor for you?
Well, I felt that as the years went by that I was getting better at it. I had bosses who for the most part were very supportive, allowed me to sometimes experiment a little bit with my writing, and I felt that I was doing something special. I also liked the fact that the hours were often flexible. There were no hours. You had assignments, you got them done. And that gave me a lot of time to be with my family and be with my kids as they grew up and that sort of thing.
Yeah, and I know we had a little chat before, and we talked about some of your accomplishments here. I have Oklahoma Sportswriter of the Year in 1980, Texas Sportswriter of the Year in 1985. Among those, what is your biggest accomplishment of your career?
I think just overall being assigned to a beat and doing a good job. Most of what I did in the 80s was cover the Southwest Conference. It was a very turbulent time for the conference, a lot of schools going on probation, and you really had to be on top of things. And I do think that I did a pretty good job on that. And then as a deputy sports editor too, I felt I helped that paper, the San Antonio Express-News. I feel like I helped that paper improve a great deal. And those would probably be the main things.
Yeah. Now, something that resonated with me that you said is that along those accomplishments, that being able to keep that work-life balance or family balance with your work. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I know a lot of sports writers who threw themselves in it to the degree that family situations suffered, and I wasn't going to let that happen. And so I took care to make family time, to raise the kid. Coach Little League. I coached him in Little League. There was one summer where I was assigned to the All-Star game in San Francisco, and I took the family with me, and we turned it into a family vacation. And that was the most rewarding thing, is watching our three kids grow up and sending them off to college, and now we've got 9 grandkids. Each of our 3 kids has 3 kids. So there you go. It's a baseball team.
Yeah.
No DH, by the way.
No, beautiful. So let me ask you this. In your whole career, what are some of the lessons that you've learned, and what are some things for some future generations of reporters that are trying to get into that field? What are some of the things that you learned that might impact that?
I think far and away the biggest thing is to read a lot and to write a lot. Those are dying arts now. But anybody who can do those with any degree of proficiency is really going to get ahead in whatever they're doing. And you need to read books and see how the author of those books, what sort of style is involved in his writing. Reporting, especially, read other news accounts, news magazines. I grew up reading Time and Life, my parents' mag. I was a weird kid. You have to project yourself too, but you can't be afraid to stick your nose in the middle of it. I remember I was very young. I was 23, working in Savannah, and I was sent up to Hilton Head to cover a tennis exhibition, and one of the tennis stars that was involved was Billie Jean King. And I was nervous. I was really nervous because I was going to have to get up there. But I said to myself, you are going to ask her at least one question, face to face, before you leave today. And so they finished the tennis match, and she's walking off the court. And I said, Miss King, are you headed for the press tent? She goes, yes, I am. And I said, that's it. I asked it. And it made me feel pretty good. But eventually you've got to realize that you got to go toe to toe with sometimes very important people. And it kind of, I was a shy kid at first. Well, journalism brought me out of that pretty quick.
What does this induction for you mean?
Well, when the Hall of Fame was formed, it's been about 15, 16 years ago, there was something they put together the bylaws, and I came aboard and I read the bylaws, and lo and behold, there was a category for sports journalism.
Yeah.
And I said, well, that's interesting. Well, the years went by, and I'm on the selection committee, by the way, but I did recuse myself on this particular vote. I was in the parking lot when it happened. And then as the years went by, we really wanted to focus on the athletes and the coaches first. And so lo and behold, the years go by, we don't have anybody in the journalism category. And so the committee had several candidates on its list, and I tried to steer them one way and they went the other. So here I am.
To finish this all up, is there any thanks or anybody that you want to shout out to be receiving this award?
There's no doubt about that. I've always been beholden to the faculty of San Jac, because they really gave me a boost, really gave me some strong encouragement when I was there. And I mentioned the names earlier, Miss Sullivan and Sally Sanford and John Boland. Two of them are gone, but John Boland's still around, and I see him every once in a while. Then there's Bill Barmore, who's just recently stepped down as president. He has always taken an interest. He actually used to read my stuff, and he's always been very profusive in his comments, kind comments about me. And in fact, he stepped forward immediately to sponsor our table at the banquet in April. My wife and kids, who at times had to put up with a lot, I will go to my office and shut the door, and I don't want to be bothered. I'll talk to you in a few hours. And then my mom died a few years ago, and when I was growing up, things were tough for her. And yet, when I became a sports writer, she took great joy in clipping all of my articles, clipping and taping, and put him in a what we call a string book. And so I've always been grateful for that. She was a proud mama, and I was very pleased that I could give her something to enjoy.
On behalf of the committee, I want to say thank you for all the work that you've done, and also thank you for all of the work that you put into the Athletics Hall of Fame too. So we really appreciate it, and thank you for taking time to
Thanks,
interview with us.
Gustavo. I very much appreciate it.